Before we get started on the journey method, I'd like to just run through the 10 scientists in order with you to just see how you did. In first, Albert Einstein. Second, Marie Curie. Third, Sigmund Freud. Fourth, Max Planck. 5, Niels Bohr. 6, Jonas Salk. 7, Ivan Pavlov. 8, Enrico Fermi. 9, Robert Goddard. And in 10, joint place, Francis Crick and James Watson. How did you do? How many did you remember? Did you cheat? I don't mind if you did. It's a bit complicated sometimes remembering things, but you'd have done it in your own way. The technique I'm going to show you right now is called the journey method. It's fantastic. I love it. It dates, rumoured to date back thousands of years, which is good because things that last thousands of years tend to be good and they tend to work. So the journey method, it's rumoured to go back to the Greeks and the Romans, and it was used to carry sensitive information across long distances and periods of time. Because to remember the information and remember what's important is you just remember the steps that you take on the journey. It's great for remember lists and actions because you take steps, step by step around a route. The important thing is you pick a route that you know well. You pick a journey that you've done hundreds, maybe thousands of times before. So what we're going to do in this instance is we're going to do, say, the journey around your house in the morning when you get up before you go out, whether you're going to work or anything like that. Now, I'm going to use a traditional house structure for this, and upstairs, downstairs. If you live in a flat or an apartment or a bedsit, you can just adapt it to suit your own requirements. So the first thing we need to do for the journey route is to establish the route. You need to pick a route, as I've said, that you've done before. So in your head, just think for a moment of a journey that's got 10 steps or so that you've taken many times before, that you can remember without even thinking about it. Because for most of us, that is the journey around our house first thing in the morning. We get up, we go to the bedroom, to the bathroom, down the stairs, to the kitchen, to the living room, and so on in that set routine. So we're going to use that as a starting block for learning the journey method. So let's go to the bedroom. We'll start in the bedroom where Albert Einstein is our first point of memory. Probably the most well-known scientist of the 20th century. You probably know who he is, and he's most famous for his theory of relativity. Now, this opened the door pretty much for the creation of atomic power and the atomic bomb and many other things like that. Now, if you don't know who Albert Einstein is, what you can do is think, what does Ali say about Einstein, Albert Einstein? Now, Einstein kind of sounds like Frank Einstein. So, Frankenstein. Picture Frankenstein in your bedroom. You could picture Frankenstein as a big giant alarm clock. Or you could picture Albert Einstein holding your alarm clock. Or he could be waking you up in the morning, shaking you out of bed. Whichever works for you. So obviously you've been waken up by Albert Frankenstein, and you get out of bed and you take your first steps into the hallway. And on the hallway you meet number 2, which is Marie Curie. Now, Marie Curie discovered 2 new elements, polonium and radium. She came up with the term radioactivity, and she was also the first person to be awarded 2 Nobel Prizes. Her work, it led to the use of X-rays in medicine and laid down the foundation for new principles and new discipline of atomic physics. That's all well and good. But if you don't know who Marie Curie is, you could think, how do I associate, locate and imagine Marie Curie? You could think marrying, someone marrying. Curie, someone who cures, a nurse, perfect. So you could picture a nurse in a wedding dress on your landing. So either Marie Curie standing on your landing messing about with some chemicals, or a nurse in a wedding dress just about to get married. So you squeeze past, and most of us go to the toilet first thing in the morning, so you go into your bathroom. In third place is Sigmund Freud. He discovered a process called psychoanalysis. Now, even though a lot of his theories are no longer regularly used, what he did do was establish a new way of thinking about ourselves that we have really taken for granted since in the last 50 years as a way of understanding our activities and our behaviour. One of the easiest alleys for Sigmund Freud is basically the therapist couch. So you can imagine yourself going into the bathroom, just about to go to the toilet, and there's Sigmund Freud sitting on his therapist couch, which is in place of your bath, and he starts analysing the way you go to the bathroom. If you don't know anything about Sigmund Freud or anything like that, what you can do is, how do you think Ali Sigmund Freud? So, Sigmund Freud, sick man, fraud. So you can think of a fraud that deals with sick people. So, if you know your Wild West history, you'll know about snake oil. And if not, snake oil is basically a fix-all remedy. We get it nowadays. There are new magic vitamins. But a snake oil salesman would sell you an elixir, a medicine that would make you well. Now, most of the time, it was just alcohol or cod liver oil or things like that. It was a fraud. So a sick man fraud could be someone trying to sell you snake oil. So after you've been to the bathroom, you need to go downstairs. On the staircase, there is a gentleman named Max Planck. He revolutionized physics, really. He created the theory of energy that we know as quantum theory. It's been instrumental in many scientific discoveries of the 20th century. But if you don't know Max Planck, so you wouldn't recognize him on your staircase, what do you do? Well, you can think of a rain mac that could be being worn by a plank of wood. So you can imagine a plank of wood wearing a rain mac, and you squeeze past it on your way down the stairs into your kitchen, which is step 5. And in your kitchen, you find a gentleman named Niels Bohr, a Danish physicist who won the Nobel Prize for Physics for his progress in understanding the structure of atoms. He worked then in England and with the United States, helping the Allies create the atomic bomb and, again, atomic energy. If you don't know Niels Bohr, well, what can you think is in your kitchen? Well, it could be your pet boar. And as all pet boars do, in the morning when they greet you, they kneel down and squeal. So you've got your cup of tea, your breakfast, and you want to go and sit down in your living room, which is step 6. So you sit down in your living room and you put on the television, and on the morning TV, the breakfast news, they are talking about Jonas Salk. He was pretty much a hero when he invented the vaccine for polio, because at the time polio was really devastating. It was paralyzing people. It was killing people across the world. It was an epidemic. Now, the wonderful thing about Jonas Salk was he decided not to patent the vaccine so that it could be distributed cheaply. He lost out on millions and millions in potential revenue from that. But what he did do was he saved probably millions of lives from that. So Jonas Salk is a great man, and he was a great news article. But if you don't know who Jonas Salk looked like, Joan Collins could be on GMTV or whatever morning TV you watch. And what she could do is she could be holding a bag of salt, or she could be promoting a new salt diet, which is probably not very healthy, but who knows? It's Joan Collins promoting salt. After you've watched your telly, you finish your breakfast, you need to get up, go to work. So you go into the hallway. In your hallway, there's a gentleman named Ivan Pavlov. He established the theory of conditioned reflexes, which you may know as the test with a dog drooling whenever it heard a bell ringing, because it had become used to being fed at the same time as a ringing bell. His findings have had far-reaching effects in psychology and behaviour. If you don't know what Ivan Pavlov looks like, well, simple. You could go into your hallway and there could be a dessert trolley. And on that dessert trolley could be a nice pavlova. And, you shouldn't, but you want it. So I want pavlova. Ivan Pavlova. Simple. You've got to open the door to get out of the house. And so when you get to your doorway, there could be a gentleman there opening it for you named Enrico Fermi. Now, he experimented with neutrons, which eventually led to the splitting of the atom. Yet another scientist responsible for the nuclear chain reaction. Again, the atomic bomb, but also atomic energy, which, gives us most of our electricity nowadays. Don't know that Enrico Fermi? Open the door. It's squeaking. So it's a squeaky door. Enrico Squeaky. and squeako. And like every job's around the house, it's another job for me to do. So squeaky for me, Enrico, and squeaky for me, Enrico Fermi, in the doorway. Now, these association, location, imaginations don't have to be specific. It can be just noises and sounds, things that you will remember. In your garden, you have Robert Goddard. He was the father of modern rocketry, and he was also the first person to successfully launch a liquid-fueled rocket. Now, when he was alive, he was ridiculed and unappreciated because he believed that one day a rocket could be sent to the moon. Now, he's since been proven right, and his mockers been proven wrong. But if you don't know what Robert Goddard looks like, how will you ally it? Well, simple. You could picture a robot, Robert Robot, and he could be drawing a picture of God in your garden. God art, Robert Goddard, robot God art. So in your garden, you've got robot drawing a picture of God, Robert Goddard. So you walk down your path on the way to the bus or to go to get into your car, and two gentlemen are walking down the street arguing. They're quite famous for arguing, and it's Francis Crick and James Watson. Now, these two discovered the double helix, which is what's known as the blueprint of life. It's the strands of DNA. Now, understanding DNA has enabled enormous leaps in medical science in the last 50 years since it's been founded. So very, very important technique. So if you don't know what Francis Crick and James Watson look like, you could picture two gentlemen. France is, so it could be your stereotypical French person, and he could be playing cricket. France is cricket, and cricket is a game, and games rhymes with James, so he could be playing a game of cricket. So a Frenchman playing cricket games with Dr. Watson from Sherlock Holmes. So Francis cricket games with Watson. Francis Crick, James Watson. So that's your 10 steps of the journey. Now, what I'd like you to do is just think about that for a minute before we refresh and revisit.